Kristian Olsen here. Everyone, welcome to another awesome day of training.
So I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of what we're going to cover today, and then we'll dive into it. There are quite a few topics to go over. If you've seen any of the previous streams that I'm in, it's actually a number of those things kind of combined, if you will. So we're going to go over the power of kind of record selections and lists, to put it in general terms. We'll show off virtual lists, which we've had in some previous streams. We're going to go back to the add-on tool in an actual integration of it and have a conversation on how you can take a cool demo file and actually add it to your solution. Because a demo file can be great, but if you can't add it to your solution, there's not a whole lot of value there if you can't add it easily. We're going to talk about custom functions lightly. We're going to even broach on plugins. And if there's enough time, I'm going to show a real integration of a beta version of this program that I'm calling Virtual Windows into a customer solution. So I've already used this with an actual customer who's given me permission to show off their file if we have time. So let's talk about what the problem is that would call for this demo file that I'm going to show off here shortly. So I've got a copy of Starting Point on screen here, and this is the starter solution I use with a number of my clients. And one that I recently had, we kept having to add action buttons. So you'll notice up here, we've got duplicate, we've got print, we've got labels, we've got report. They're actually very nicely laid out. And this client that I'm referring to used the projects module, if I can find it, and we've customized it a lot. And we got to the point where my client was like, Kristian, I can't find all of the buttons that you've made for me. So I was like, how can we put all of those in an easy to find place so that he can find them? And what is something out there that we already have that is similar that he could relate to? And that's where I stole an idea actually from Nick Hunter and then took it and ran with it a whole lot further. So let's go and jump into the demo file, and then we can come back to how to integrate this. Okay. So I've got something over here that I'm calling virtual menus, and we've got a little icon up here, menu. Think of menu like file up here. So on basically every program, Mac and in Windows as well, you can find your most common actions at the top of the screen. And most people know to look for the things that they're looking for up here. FileMaker has that, but we tend to try to keep our things in the window. So menu is basically the same thing as that. It's a place to find common actions. Could that be print, email, a find, whatever it is that you need to add. But one of the things that came with the client recently is they really like this. I've added this for a number of clients, but they started needing a bunch of different things broken down. So I thought, how cool would it be if you could actually have kind of that cascading menus just like you do on your Mac or Windows? And so I added something for them where you can kind of click and you can get extra options. So maybe rather than entering find mode, you want to find all the active, void, or canceled, what have yous. Maybe you want previous finds. So this seemed really cool in and of itself. But then I thought, as much as clicking here works, what if you didn't have to click on it? What if you could just do it like your computer and hover and have those menus drop out? How cool would that be? So a second ago there, I was actually clicking on these to activate them. Now we're just hovering. And we've got our different menus coming down.
All right, so Kristian, I zoomed in on that a little bit there. I was answering people over here on my left and came back to you, and I zoomed in. It's better when I zoom in a little bit. So are you going to be doing scripting here, or what are we going to do here? So I'm trying to figure out what I should be showing here.
Are you showing something different on screen?
No, I just zoom in more, even more than your resolution, so people can really see.
I think we're gonna come back to the scripting and like the under the hood at the end. First, I want to kind of just show what these implementations are, how you could add them to a file, and then if we have enough time, I'll really drill into how they work. And there's actually 2 implementations of it. Does that help kind of answer what you're saying now?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just kind of following you around a little bit because we're zoomed in pretty tight. So.
And one discussion I want to kind of just very lightly broach on is design. So when I'm making kind of something like this, I'll look at it and go, okay, this is cool, but how should it work? When should the menu close? What should it look like? And Richard, when I first started RCC, you actually gave me one of the best suggestions when you asked me to go build something. And if I remember correctly, you said, make me something that looks nice and not, and I'll leave out the expletive. And I said, but how do I know what nice is? And you said, I don't know, go to Amazon, go to Apple, go to Google, go look at what the industry leaders are making who have spent a ton of money on this and see how they do it and copy them. That's what Nick does. And so I simply looked at
I
this.
think Nick would argue that he is so awesome that they just probably copy him.
They copy him.
Well,
absolutely.
When he was at Apple, he was part of that team. I think anymore, I mean, the tail is not wagging the dog, but back when, yeah, so.
But absolutely. So when you're looking to copy something from Apple, you are looking at Nick Hunter. Nick Hunter is a designer. That's one of the things that I really admire when I look at the things that he makes, is that ability to design something. Now, my design abilities aren't necessarily on par with Nick, but I know people who are as good as Nick, and Apple is one of those people entities. And so I simply looked at, how does my menu system work up here? What does it look like? Notice how that menu doesn't close, but if I'm over here and I don't select anything, it does close. Okay, they highlight, I click off, it closes. All of these little details to try to make this work the same. Oh, that one's closing right now, of course. But kind of that similarity. So that's where I looked at to copy the design. So, and I'm going to try to keep an eye on questions, but I'll probably bounce in and out in those. So there's two implementations going on here. I want to show both those off, and then I want to show you how to add them to a file. So we're actually going to jump to a different layout here real quickly. Perfect. Okay, so the way that this one works right here is a little bit different, and I wanted to give two implementations in case, and we are going to share the file, yes, in case people you may have different needs for integrating this into a file, and so flexibility is good. So this is what I started off with. We've got a menu here, and we've got the submenus, okay? But let's look at what's actually going on. The first menu is actually just a series of buttons. This is the part that I stole from Nick. He's gotten his Launchpad solution, but he doesn't necessarily use it like this, but it's the principles there. What's nice about this is you have an actual button. It's really easy to tell it what to do. So for your general actions, those who maybe aren't ninjas out there can make this work, but then maybe you want to add the submenus. Now you might need to move where these portals are at, but this is where the magic starts to come in. So over here, we've got well, let's start with actually just the script. So right here, we can build the virtual menu, and let's look at what actually drives this. I'm going to back out for just a moment. We're going to get our data viewer on screen. Go ahead.
Okay, what I want to do is, Elzo asked a question on Discord. He goes, when you are implementing this type of menu, does it actually replace all other menus in the solution?
And that's a good, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's an object you put on the layout. So do you, I mean, the question is, do you want it to replace all the other menus on in your system? I mean, it doesn't replace at the top here, right? I mean, the only way to replace those, we've covered twice the custom menu conversation. So if you put this here and you're totally in love with it, then you could get rid of buttons and things like that. Once again, I mean, doing all one thing or doing, you know, I try to steer away from it. People see some new feature and like, hey, let's just replace everything with this one thing, right? It's a great interface is a balanced approach, right? We're not having we're not having all ice cream for dinner, lunch, and breakfast, right? So
absolutely, it's like my kitchen right now. I've got plates in certain drawers. I've got knives on a magnetic strip on the wall. It kind of depends on what I'm storing and how I want to use it. So for even the first client that I really added this for, most of his actions are in here in the project screen, but not all of them. In fact, there's certain things that wouldn't make sense to go in here. So if we go back to starting point here for a moment, there are still items over here in the tabs that I probably would not take out of there. I don't think I'm going to make a new estimate, or excuse me, new invoice, new estimate. But these top items, maybe I absolutely would put them in there. Now, if you're referring to the top section, as Richard said, that would be more of a custom menus question, and I kind of left that out. But to circle back to it for a moment, I'm not a big fan of custom menus either. And in general, I don't think my clients know to look up here. So I could do it with this, but the idea was keeping it in the module here. And then Elzo, it's up to you. What do you want to put in there? What don't you want to put in there? Talk to your clients, decide what makes sense to you. But I think it would be a balanced approach, like Richard said. So we'll go ahead and throw that off of here. And let's take a look at how this first one works. And again, I'll dive deeper into the implementation near the end here, but I'm going to go ahead and open up one of these menus. And I'm going to pull up the data viewer. And let's go ahead and open this. So that's the submenu right there. And I would imagine for many of you, that is a bit overwhelming to look at. But when I write virtual lists, I generally follow a pretty standard method. I'm going to show you another method later, which is what I call the pipe separation method. I did not invent this. Other developers use it, but it allows you to basically encode multiple values to your virtual list. So if we look at the virtual list over here, you'll notice that we see the word menu 2. Well, there's menu 2. Then we've got a number. We'll come back to that number. Then we have another number. We'll come back to that. This menu is unique in that it has another menu underneath it, and so I have to encode a whole bunch more data. I'm not going to drill down into that right now because I don't want to lose everyone in the minutia, but that's what's going on there. Now, when you look at the second one, we've got print, we've got do that, we've got not a hack. And then the second number, if I remember correctly here, is going to be the script that it calls. One of these is the script. One of them is the icon code. And I'm going to show you how you can tell what that is here in a moment. But that is the menu. It's a virtual list. So if we go back here now and we look at this in layout mode, you'll notice that that's what these portals are, virtual menus. And I can show you the managed database, but basically we have a Cartesian join, everything equals everything. And then we've got some choices here. Now, underneath this is going to be the option that allows us to drill further down into a submenu. On top of it is a button bar that hides based on certain conditions. So let's look at what this is actually doing. And this is a little overwhelming to look at. But basically, we have a custom function in here, or I have a custom function called menu data.
I'm gonna slow down so just how I can zoom in so they can see this real nice.
And I forgot to switch to not mode, so sorry,
and they're gonna lose their minds.
I know they are. So this custom function basically allows me to encode something a little bit easier for people that are maybe. I tried to make it as easy as possible, but you have the name of the button, you have an icon code, and then you've got the script ID. We'll talk about this a lot more as the video progresses. And then you basically have a data structure here to build the submenu. So the virtual list integration, I'm air quoting this, is easier than the next integration we're going to show. However, the learning curve is quite steep. Unless you're pretty good at code, this is probably a lot to digest. And again, I'm not necessarily going to drill into it right now. We can loop back around and talk about this more. Okay, so how does it actually create these virtual menus through the hover action? Again, we'll get into the drill down how things work later, but that uses the base elements plugin, and you can basically perform a script using a tooltip. But you really need to control how it works because it executes over and over and over again, and you don't want a giant list of scripts that are trying to perform. But that's what's going on there. So we're going to back up here. And again, if we open up the data viewer, you can see the values here populate in real time.
Okay, so you want to, well, is there, okay, the Discord folks, since you guys are in real time, does this make sense to you, or is any of this confusing? Because I'm actually watching this halfway, answering questions, and I'm confused, but I wasn't really super focused on it.
I would imagine it would be confusing for most people.
Kadini says it's very cool, and I'm waiting for David's there. So there's only like 2 of them actually watching, I think. The rest of them are no. Well, it's cool. The question is, do you understand what he just did? Because when he was in layout mode, Kristian, can you go back to layout mode? Then just do it for me, because obviously everyone's smarter than I am. So go back to the part where okay. Now what is this? What is that?
It's a portal.
That's a portal. And did you set that up for each of that submenu and that submenu, or does it? I mean, like if you you set up once and then it kind of replicates itself, or how's that work?
Absolutely. So it's a virtual menu. So if we go to a virtual list, excuse me, if we go to the table, I've got a couple fields in here. Let's look at where's button text. button text says, hey, what's the first value? So I have a custom function called virtual value. So if you recall, I encode the variable, and it's going to be name, and then it's going to be icon code, and then it's going to be script ID. So this custom function says, hey, what is the list? It's $$ values. Then it says, okay, which of these values am I interested in? I'm interested in the first one. The first one is the name. Second one is the icon. Third one is the script. But this list repeats.
Right. No,
So
my question is not so much getting the data in there, because I've actually done demos. I mean, back years ago with other engineers we shot videos on. If you go back to the layout, what I'm wondering is
propagate that list.
Yeah, I understand, but here's my question. Is right. So I understand that you can dynamically get data in here, but this portal right here is definitely, I mean, it's stuck in a very specific position on this layout, right? But if I select this one here, is it going to get a different? Is it, or does this portal?
It's magic. I think I know what you're talking about. So if I go to this one,
yeah,
where's the first row at?
Yeah. It's
$150, and I'll tell you the answer.
God bless it. You are a piece of work.
Let's look at that. That was a really good question. How?
Well, because I didn't see it there. So is it the same portals, but they're repositioning themselves?
Nope. Initially, when Nick tried to call this a hack, no, Nick never saw that one. The very, very first time I did this, I layered portals on top of each other.
I hate to break it to you. This redefines the word hack. Okay, this is beyond a hack. So,
if it's a hack, it's a cool hack. So how do you get rid of the first row? You make it a null. So there is a first row. It's
stop. Go back. I just had an epiphany on this. Go back. Go back to layout mode.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand. And listen, if I'm not getting this, then no one else is. So you're telling me, so let's say that we have submenus that start all the way up here, right? So then would you set the portal all the way up here? And then the first rows would be, so it's always showing you, so you just started here because this happens to be the first one. Go back to browse mode again. So so go back and
let me show you another screen really quickly too. That's going to make what you're asking make more sense. And we'll get to this one. In this situation, they're not lower. They're, If in order for the sub menu to be available at every row, it has to be built like this. Now, why is the other one not built like this? This was Rev 1. And I built it out to make it so people can use it, but I got to a certain point where I'm not really using this. But it's still cool. It demonstrates the principle. So yes, if you wanted to use this, you would need to move these portals.
Yeah, but then what happens, so it is that we're actually, the portal is there, right? This is like a very big realization. The portal's there, but we're making all these first ones totally transparent and visible, and we start it at the correct position.
Correct.
That's a dirty dog hack. That's like when your dog rolls in the mud and it comes in on your white carpet and then it just rolls on your white carpet. This is a dirty dog hack. That's like super hackery. We're gonna have to get a stuffed animal that calls the hack.
And what's great about this is in order to hide those rows, well, this is icon code 1. Let's hide that. In order to hide those rows, it's really easy. In fact, I don't even think I need hide calculations. That's right. Well, if it's empty, hide. But I think I even got to the point where I don't even need to hide it, really, because I think it's translucent. But you'll see in the next one, too. The virtual list, it's easy to hide the rows because you just make a null value. But in the next one, it's going to get a little more complicated, but easier for people to integrate. Right. So this one is easier to integrate, but you need to know how everything works because it relies on your presence of mind. For example, and I don't want to drill too deep yet on how it all works, but how do you get the second set to work? You could just have another global variable, but what if you wanted to have another submenu, another submenu, another submenu? You would ultimately end up having to have a script per submenu, and I didn't like that. So I'm doing something that I don't recommend most people do for most things, but I'm using repetitions. So if you look up here, we're still using $$ values, but we've added a repetition. So the first one here is our menus to print other action, but our repetition, the second instance of that global variable, has our other submenu here, our submenu, our grand submenu. And if we go back to the virtual list, it's able to distinguish those because we can tell it that we want the second repetition of that. So adding more submenus, there's a structure here. I only did 2 deep because honestly, how many people are even going to get to this third one? I'm using it in a file, but I can't imagine you need a fourth one. If you do it, I think I've given people enough of a leg up to build it for
I
themselves.
think if Dr. Pollard can figure this out, he will do like 8 of them. He'd be the kind of guy that go 8 across on this, right? So, because
absolutely,
he would be like, "Oh yeah, we totally need that." Like, it'd be like, and he has to make little sounds, like it goes here and it goes chink, and then it goes chink, and then it goes like little chains clinking, chink, right? And then yeah, so this is pretty wild.
And there's a lot. We're not even discussing how these actually really know what script to call, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. But let's change gears just slightly. So this is the virtual list integration of it. It's what I started with. It's actually fairly easy to dump into a solution and make work if you understand how to build a virtual list. And I've built enough custom functions in here to try to really make it easy for the user. For example, Richard, you pointed out astutely, what about these blank rows? I've got a custom function. You just tell it where it starts, and it builds the blank rows for you. So I've tried to make as many custom functions that tell you what you have to encode to try to make this really easy. But for most people, I think that this is going to be hard to understand. So how can someone else actually make this work? Let's go take a look at another version of this integration. So this one works the same. However, let's go into layout mode. They're all portals. There are no longer standard buttons.
Oh, okay.
And check this out. So hang on. We've got print, email, finds, submenus, blah, 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 blah. Let's change it. And it just changed in real time.
Oh. This could be huge if you want to change the context for like the person's doing various actions and stuff.
You have a lot of capabilities there.
I have a question. How does this scale for enterprise kind of work? Because Claris is running around talking about, hey, we're the enterprise. We're the enterprise. We're the enterprise. FileMaker's enterprise. We're enterprise. So is this scale? Like, I mean, if I put it on the server, is it going to slow down or?
I think there's a number of things to consider, but virtual lists, generally speaking, are extremely fast because everything is
they're local. They're local. Yeah, very much so.
This integration is record-based, but I can show you all. I did this in a morning meeting one day. What's happening here to try to make it make sense? Oops.
I mean, obviously, I think I'm the dumbest person here because no one's asking questions. So either they're blown or they're bored. Like Nathan Schneider should be able to do this in his sleep. TK, maybe not. I'm not sure. Scott Kane is typing. Scott's probably suffering a little bit. This is definitely Nick grade crazy going on here.
And I'm going to try to get to.
Scott says he's memorized. Right, Nathan Schnez. He just said that I'm so awesome that you could pay me and I can do this next time. It's so simple. And then
who said that?
No, I'm messing with you. Nathan Schneider.
Okay,
I'm just. Okay, so everyone says you basically blew their brain, and I don't want to say that they're afraid to ask questions to look stupid, especially on Discord, because we're like, we make fun of each other all the time. So, or at least I make fun of.
Well, yesterday you said it was intermediate, and I wasn't going to chime in and tote my own horn or anything, but I feel like that some of the techniques in here are quite advanced.
And here,
some of it's actually really basic.
It is like hiding rows in a portal, but I've never. That's like gross misuse of, it's like when you see some person who's, the politician gets arrested for corruption, gross misuse of public funds. That's a gross misuse of a portal, flinging it in the middle of the layout and hiding the top half. I mean, I guess that's a normal thing, but I've never seen that before.
I stole it from Nick Hunter.
Yeah. So absolutely, Nathan Schneider says, laughing loud. It's not a hack, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. Yeah, I know. It's like
So how does this one work? Because this one is not a virtual list. It's not. But if you understand the techniques of record selections and lists, it makes sense. So let's look at what's going on here. This over here is a key. If I open up the data viewer again, there's a key in there. That's what that one is. It's a real. Most of you have made value lists. It's showing the name, but it's actually setting a key. That's what propagates the first portal here. But let's look at what propagates the second portal. Boom. In fact, yeah, we can take there's an ID in here. It's stretched out, but that's only one ID, and that's what gives us these children records. When I highlight on here, that allows us to get the next set. In fact, one of the things that I think is cool about this one is you could infinitely drill this down, and the structure that I put in here makes it very doable if you understand kind of what's going on. And then once you clear it, it clears those out. So Richard, these ones, there are blank rows, and I'll explain how that works. But basically, the reason that portal shows right now is that key is in there. When the key goes away, the portal goes away because there's no records to display.
Okay.
So
I'm looking at the conversation here. So David Engel says, Nick, could use it for search bar similar to Google. I mean, it's when you I'm not following the context of the statement, but there's that. Jay Dripper, he described what most people are. They're stunned into silence, right? Stunned into silence, right? So that's kind of the lack of engagement here. It's not because, I mean, if you're trying to apply for a job, you're doing a great job of blowing everyone away. But the thing is that we. Oh yeah, according to Dr.
Inspired. I agree with Pollard.
Did you see that? That's great. Dr. Pollard.
Absolutely.
He goes, according to Nick, we don't use the word stolen anymore. We use inspired by. Right? That's what happened to Google and Android. They were inspired by Apple's user interface. They managed just to copy the crap out of it for the Android. So anyway.
So I want to show how to integrate this, and I would love to drill down and explain what's going on. But one other thing I want to show before we get to the next step is in the virtual list, you have to basically pass a parameter with a giant string of information. And I think that for most people, that's the deep end of the pool. Maybe a single return to limited list, but once you have value 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you've got repetition 1, 2, people's heads start to explode. You're deep into an array, and most people don't use that in FileMaker. So similar, I did a Docusign integration for a customer, and it all started off in calculation and script land, where if I had to come back in later and support my client, it would be very difficult even for me to reverse engineer what's going on. So I found that building user interfaces, even for developers like myself, makes it easy to support things. And so over here is how you can build the menus for the second integration. So we've got menu 1, we've got menu 2, we've got what I'm going to call infinite menu, and I'll dive into that. And basically you can build a menu over here. When you build a menu, it puts it into this list over here. So based on the layout, based on the user, you select the correct key. These submenus are related to that menu set, if you will. So if we go to infinite menu, we've got submenu 1, we've got option. Let's do menu 1 because these are real script things. We've got print, we've got email. And then if we click on finds, whoops, let's go back. We click on finds, we have those finds. And then if we want to drill down, there's a couple ways to drill down. I can click right here, or I can click right here. They do the same thing. And if we go to infinite menus or menu, you'll see that we can actually drill down into this quite a ways. We can go as far as we need to. Now, can I go display 6, 7 menus deep onto here? No, I would have to do some changes. But the structure doesn't change. The scripts don't change. You would just need to add.
So we have the visual. So we're talking about building the virtual list 1, and then 2. That has to, in order to actually display, like say we had 5 of them in here, right? You'd have to come over here and have your 5 corresponding portals, but we only have say 2. So if we built the data over here, then it wouldn't show up because we still have to display the
correct. So this is menu number 1 right here. So if we go back over, we're going to see that print email finds. And then if we want to see the sub menu for that, so we've got finds. Finds has these ones. there's finds. And then if we want to see previous finds, it just swaps. So it moved to the left. So that other menu is kind of buried. We can go backwards. We can go forward.
Yeah.
So now if we come in here, we can see the previous finds. Now, if I wanted to have another submenu inside of here, let's go back to infinite menu for just 1 second. Is it in here? Yeah. So at this point, it can dive down another step. Let's say we get to the fourth menu. We don't have a fourth menu over here. We would have to build that.
Yeah, it's another portal, right?
Wouldn't be that hard.
It's another portal. It's another portal, right? So
it's another portal, but it's also another variable. There's some flexibility on how you might want to integrate this, because we still haven't even talked about how this actually calls scripts, because this is a portal row. So how does this know to call script 1, 2, 3, let alone whatever set of scripts this thing needs to call? They're all different scripts. So how does it know what to do? So in the virtual list, I showed you all that we were passing IDs. Script IDs are something that are under the hood. So Nick tends to, and part of the idea, part of the inspiration for this was Nick's layout navigation system that's in his Launchpad solution. So similar to that, I'm basically using scripts. And I don't like using script names because they change over time, and I don't like the stuff that I build to break. So over here, we can select some scripts and we see their name. However, that's not what's stored here. What we store here is an ID. And then I've got a custom function in here, it's not mine, that interprets the ID into the current version of the name. But where do these scripts come from? Over here, and I'll show this in starting point, is a virtual list of every single script in the database, created on demand. And over here is a value list of said scripts. So right now, the only ones that are available are print, email, and populate virtual menu. But if I click back right here, I add that as a selection choice. Whoops. So now back is available. Well, should be once we close that window. There we go. So I like this because I could have just had every single script in the entire database display here, but I believe there's like 500 scripts in starting point right now. Whereas when I'm building a menu, my guess is I don't know what I need access to, 10, 15, 30, 50. And so this is a nice way of building that virtual list. And if I want to get rid of a script, I just uncheck it and the selection goes away. So this is a virtual list that's just a giant JSON array that shows us the script name, but stores the script ID. And that's what we display over here. So this is how you can build your menus, and you don't have to be a pro to come in here and make them. Now, one of the things that most of us like with our menus are icons. So one of the things I realized in building this is I'm probably going to reuse the same icons over and over and over again, and I got tired of going and looking for them. So I added a portal over here of all the unique or non-repeating icons. You don't have to add them over here. If I add a new icon to a menu over here, oops, then it automatically adds it to the list, but none of them ever repeat. If I click on one, I can copy it, and then let's show that real quick. So let's find one that maybe doesn't have an icon. There we go. So we're going to copy the menu, or the stamp, excuse me, paste it in there, boom. So that was an easy way, and now you could just add a standalone icon in here. So there's your icons. Keep in mind that the colors aren't necessarily dynamic, and so you're going to need to get the colors that you want. And in the solution I've integrated in, black doesn't make sense, so we've changed that. Richard, before I jump to the next step, because I know we've got not a lot of time. Do you have any questions?
You have enough time. I blocked this out beyond to 3 o'clock, so by default it'll shut off at 2:30. We've run into that before by accident. We're like, suddenly Richard's dead and gone. So yeah. So there's
cool.
there's a discussion about Nathan's patents going on, or not Nathan's patents, but Nathan's discussing Nick's patents. Wants to know if this is patented, right?
I know. I kind of feel like I've heard that Nick has invented things, and I can't say that I've extensively searched the internet, but I can't find anyone else who's done this. So I feel, at least with some confidence that I've invented something that doesn't otherwise exist here. I'm quite proud of this. I think it's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. The reality of this is that I'm sure someone has built. Well, okay, so the way you've done it's a little different, right? Having the portals be invisible like that is very clever. We've had other engineers do other kind of variations of doing, but having the list pop out and extend to the right using portals, very cool. So yeah, I think that what we need to do, we're going to release this file. It'll probably, I'm just going to let everyone know you'll get it tomorrow because we need to put an about page on here and make sure there's proper branding in here. And then a README file that explains the difference, because I don't think most people caught this, or at least I didn't catch it when you were saying it, that basically we have a sample that you can like kind of learn how it works and rip it out and copy it. Kristian's also working on an add-on module where you drag and drop it. The problem is we're having this problem with the drag and drop add-on modules from Claris. A, it's a beta feature, and B, it's very beta-y because sometimes it works great and sometimes it just, parts of it don't work at all, right? So are you gonna walk us through this?
So that's exactly it. So this is, it sounds like most people would agree. One second. So David's asking, can you show how to maintain the new window menu always behind the menu when changing the position? I'm not sure if I 100% understand that. Do you know what he's asking?
Well, he's talking about your portal, right? The portal's moving around and stuff, right? That's, David, what you're saying, right?
Do you mean like when I resize like this window?
Let me see.
Because you can kind of mess with it a little bit depending on where you position it.
How to maintain the new window.
And do you mean the no one knows what this is. It's a popover. Maybe that's what he thinks that maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing all three with portals, but it's a pop. Oh, it's a pop. Oh, got it. And then so wait. That's a pop. The first one's a popover, and then these are. Oh, I didn't catch it. I was thinking 3 portal, but one of them is 3 portals, right? So
this one is 3 portals, but they're all. So when I'm double clicking on this, a popover is opening up. These are all inside of a popover here.
Well, okay, back up. The portals are all in a popover.
Correct. So there's our popover.
Okay, that's
there's a hidden button where if you click outside of it, it does some stuff.
Yeah.
And then what they also do, this is important. I learned this actually like yesterday or Sunday. I need them to resize down. Because what if you have more than 10 menu options?
Yes.
Then if you pull the window down, the portal and the popover drag down and they grow as large as you can make them monitor.
David says yes, then you move the window and the popover is also always below.
So popovers are always open until you click off of them. I'm not doing any magic there. Now, what I did have to script is clicking on the button to close it. I also had to script it where if I click in here, it will close. But otherwise, popovers, that's just their native behavior. You click in them, you click, they close. But there were some spots where I could hover and have it close. I can't remember off the top of my head. So again, I was going to try to mostly show the how-tos at the end. But yeah, we can definitely show this. And because this is almost an hour-long conversation in and of itself. So I'm not going to dive deep into it. But when you go to menu, let's go ahead and open that. And then I go to hover. This is where I mentioned that you really have to control this and know what's going on. Look at that stack. That's enormous. So the way that the base elements, the reason this works at all, and again, you don't have to do the hover, and it might not work on Windows. You can do the click method, and the click method works great. But base elements allows you to perform a script through a set variable. And I'm going to show you how I make that work with a tooltip here in just a moment. But when you hover it, it basically calls this script. The first time it runs through the script, it's going to propagate our second menu. Boom. Okay. And then it halts. It's really important you understand that halt script take place versus an exit script. Otherwise, it's running, and you'll see flashing on screen, and the performance is going to go to hell. Now, watch this. When I hover again, there's actually an object in between these, but it won't actually perform. There's a slight object right here that does if you've selected something in here. Okay, so how do I perform a script with a tooltip? This is something I kind of it's not going to close now, that I stumbled across several years ago, and I never knew how I would actually use it. So let's go in here and take a quick look. Okay. Magic, it just happens. So I've got two custom functions here. One of them is I need to pass some parameters to the I need to pass parameters to the first custom function, which is called hover execute. These are basically the 3 inputs that I want to put in. Nick typically does these with a list. I ran into an issue with list, which is that there's lists and lists and lists. So basically this custom function, let's go look at that in the data viewer just real quick. And again, I want to show people how to add these to their file, because whether or not you fully understand how this works, you can still use it. So basically what this custom function does is it makes JSON easy for people who are not familiar with it. That's a JSON array. So I've got a key value pairing. The action is exit. I have a name of a field, and then I've got the value that I want to put in. The way that this thing works is you basically have certain keys. You tell the script what key you need to set and what value to put in the key. So if you guys remember about 10 minutes ago, I put the keys up here and you could see things populate into them. That's what's happening. Now at the top of my script, there's an action that takes place. In this case, the action is exit. Okay, so now let's go look at the custom function that really does the magic. And that is called hover execute, which is going to look a bit complicating, but it isn't necessarily that bad. But it probably looks it. Let's ignore a lot of, well, let's talk about this. So we have an input, which is a script ID. That was one of the number of things that I was passing. Really, it just can be empty. Just do quote, quote, or I might even nuke it, honestly, before I release this. Then we have the parameter. The parameter is the JSON array. And then I process that information to a degree. Then this part is actually really important, and I'm not really giving it justice as to what's going on, but there's logic in here that evaluates, has this row been hovered on already? If so, it terminates. If the base element plugin is not activate, it terminates. So down here, this is basically what happens. If exit is true, nothing happens, and that is what the tooltip will show you. Nothing. So you can't actually tell there's even a tooltip. But if it's not supposed to terminate or exit, then it calls the base element function, which is be script execute. And be script execute asks for a couple things. It wants to know the name of the script, the file, and the parameter. And so again, I'm passing script IDs, but I interpret that ID up here into the name, the current name at that time, because the names will change. Quote, quote allows you to select the current file, and the parameter is the JSON array. So that's how the base.
Can I ask a question? So where is the, so this is more of a simple question, but the tooltip, so what you're doing is you're having the tooltip activate code. Is that what we're doing, or activate a script?
This right. If you can put this right here into the tooltip and have it call a script.
But doesn't the is a tooltip? Oh, the tooltip is tooltip's a calculation. So you call a function which triggers the. Got it.
Yeah.
So you're really
actually,
I mean,
you
it's
can't,
not really
you
a
can't
script.
just put that in the tooltip. You can't put that in the tooltip by itself. You have to do a let, set a you have to do a let.
Yeah.
And then you have to set a variable. And then you put it. Don't put this in your data viewer, guys. Be careful. If any of you have ever written recursions or do some fairly advanced things, the data viewer evaluates code in real time. So if you put the base elements thing in here, it doesn't necessarily crash FileMaker, but it absolutely can, because it will start, FileMaker will start to try to call that script while it's in here. And if you hit monitor when that function is in here and it's viewing the data viewer, it's going to just repetitively call that script forever until you can somehow close your data viewer and quit FileMaker.
Okay, so we do want to keep on this, but Linux Pad wants to know if this works on Mac and Windows.
In the back of my memory, I don't think it works on Windows.
What?
No one's tested.
Wait a minute. We can't show anything this cool and not have it work on Windows. What are you doing?
Well, so like most things in the world, if you're a Windows user, you get the less good version. So, and again,
oh my
God. You can test this out. I'm not 100% sure, but if the hover doesn't work, you can still use the click method. I don't know, but like when I learned about this 2 years or so ago, I thought someone said to me the tooltips the way that it works on Windows is different than Mac, but I'm not sure. So someone will get a chance to test it out and let us know. I thought I had mentioned that earlier in the session, but I might not have. So I'm not 100% sure, but something in the back of my memory tells me that function doesn't work correctly on Windows in the tooltip, or that function.
So you can still use this with the activation of the popover method number.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first added this for my customer, there was no hover. I mean, I just did this. It still works. It's still, I think, a fairly nifty thing to have. The hover is really cool though. So
the hover would be the part that doesn't work, was what we're saying theoretically.
On Windows, potentially, not 100% sure yet. Fortunately, Apple.com is stocked with functional computers that you can.
Okay, I have to let everyone know that you used to be a sales guy for Apple, so so just so everyone understands that there's like this inherent bias, and so I listen. So for example, if it won't work in Mac and Windows, I generally won't stick it in starting point, right? Because I consider that to be
and to be clear, I actually avoid plugins in general. So this started with a customer need, and again, it was just the click method, and then I shared it internally at RCC, and Nick and I had a back and forth about whether this is a hack or not, and Nick tried to one-up me. He's like, well, that's really easy. I can do that too. And so I had to one-up Nick, so I'm like, well, how about this? I'll just make the hover actually work. So this was a back and forth internally in RCC. Richard, you commented on this in our thread as Nick and I went back and forth on what is a hack.
Well, yeah, both of you are accusing the other one of a hack, and I said, pot, welcome, here's the kettle calling the pot black, or whatever that comment is, right? Two people that are nearly identical, each yelling at the other one that he's a hack. So
and I'm definitely joshing as far as who cares about Windows. That is something that I would look. I haven't had the opportunity to test it. I'll be interested in hearing back from our users if that does or doesn't work. But in the back of my mind, I think that was something I heard, and that's something to know when using this with your clients. In general, too, do you want them to even have a plugin as part of the integration? That's why in the demo file there is a script here called configure. Let me move this over on screen, and you set this accordingly. So I have it set to off by default, and then you can turn it on if you want to use the base elements. Because the base elements plugin is free, and it will come with this file. But maybe you decide that the hover isn't the way to go for you. The click method is the way to go.
David says that BE hover works on Windows too. So assuming that we trust that David is not an aggressive user of alcohol and drugs during the broadcast, then it sounds like a true statement.
Yeah, and I again, this is something I stumbled across like 2 years ago. It's in one of my own solutions, not for the menus part. This is actually an idea I had like 3 years ago when I first learned what virtual menus are, but I couldn't make something like this 3 years ago. So it's taken many hours on this. It won't work on Go, Ken, because there's no hover. Hover doesn't exist.
Yeah, but he could click on it though.
But you could click on it. So, but I haven't tried it on Go yet. This is brand new. One client has it right now, and theoretically, I'll show you guys what that looks like. But how do you add this to a file? I want to show you guys that really quickly. And Richard mentioned something kind of quickly earlier, but it's important to know. As I've been working on this, I've had some issues with the add-on tool. And as of this, I thought I had fixed it, but as of this moment, I do have an issue with some of the custom functions coming over. They come over, but the calculations are empty. You can easily fix this after the case or before integration. If you go to the custom functions in your targeted file and paste them, you can copy them from the source file, then there's no issue there. However, again, there's two integrations here. I might actually even just skip past the virtual one and show them the second one here. But in the past, when you had a cool file, I'm going to call this a cool file, and you decided you wanted to add it to something, well, what is it going to take to add this over here? I mean, are we talking 10, 20 hours of work, 5 hours of work, 1 hour of work? I mean, there's quite a few scripts in here. Not a lot, but there's a good amount. Is that going to open all of them? There we go. There's a handful of scripts. We've got value lists. There's a couple value lists in here. There's quite a few custom functions. And then if we go to the data structure and then layouts, there's a handful of layouts. And then similarly, we've got several tables. And we do have a bit of a data structure here. How long does it take to actually add this to a file? So some weeks or a month, or I don't even know how long ago with the whole COVID thing, I did a demonstration on the add-on tool. And this is a great example of why the add-on tool is so powerful for us. So we're going to go over here. We're going to go into layout mode. I've already pasted in the custom functions. I'm going to go to add-ons, and I'm going to find the virtual menus. Unless you say choose. Did I click it? Okay. I'm going to move duplicate out of the way, and I'm going to drag this on screen. So let's show this real quick. So let's see if everything lined up nicely or not. There we go. It should be pretty good. Again, all I've done is use the add-on tool. I haven't done anything. And we do have some issues. Let's talk about that. And this is why I'm tempted with the amount of time we have left to actually skip the virtual menu one and jump to the next one that's a little bit cooler. But several things break with the first integration for whatever reason. The first one is the custom functions. The second one that should break, but for some reason isn't, is the relationship graph. I'm restricted, and let's talk about the data model here in just a moment. I'm restricted in the relationships that I can make with the add-on tool. So I just have a fake child-parent relationship that is not what we're going to do. We want a Cartesian. But for some reason, it's working without me doing this. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure why. But you would change that. And then let's look at what I've done to starting point here. Okay. This is starting point, unaltered. We're not dealing with a new data model. It's anchor buoy. The only thing is for adding this, I've changed the way that we view it to be vertically organized from T01 down to T32. Okay. And then here's our add-on module. I'm going to drag that over here. And what we have, I know everyone's like, I can't see anything. We have a Cartesian join. Just everything equals everything. I like to do ID constant equals ID constant. I'm restricted with the add-on tool doing something like that. And then there's my virtual list. Okay. And then here's some extra tables that do stuff that we'll come back to. And we come over here. A couple other things break. And this is probably just because the add-on tool is new. And again, I might just skip this one here in a moment.
Dude, keep going. I don't hear anyone squealing about this, right?
Okay.
Listen, once again, if they think this is too long, then I will send them a check and refund their investment for today. So
the first step is admit you have issues. Okay. So for whatever reason, the add-on tool breaks these button bars. And so fortunately, they're not like catastrophically broken. It like creates an extra element and you just delete the top layer and the button bars are back. The next thing that happens, I wrote these down, is really bizarre. I believe it's on the object underneath here. So I'm going to hide this top row of buttons. So those first row of buttons are the action buttons, and you pass an icon code to display which icon you want. But over here, for some reason, the add-on tool, maybe it's not that one, is adding a space. Am I going to not see where it is now? Maybe it is the button bar. There it is. It adds a return. I don't know why, but it does, and that's
where was the return at? Where was the return at? Where? Why would it put a return?
God only knows. Claris.
Wait. Did you misspell that? But that word is misspelled. That has nothing to do with it. It's in quotes, right? Repetition. That's.
Oh God.
Well, I'm just making sure it's not freaking out because of the misspelling, but that wouldn't have anything to do with it, right?
I would hope that Claris isn't punishing me for my poor spelling.
You know,
if any of my customers are out there, they're laughing right now because they know when something in one of their scripts that we work on together breaks, that Kristian probably spelled the word wrong. That's my kryptonite. And then Richard, also, it breaks in the script. It doesn't like. Okay, so what we didn't really show everything that goes on here. Today isn't about the add-on tool. It's about integrating. But down here, there's one script that like builds everything, and the repetition script, it adds the return there as well. I don't know why.
Okay, that's because this is beta software and it's not final. It's not GM. So
so now it's all working. So really, if you think about it, all of those things that I just showed you that were broken took less than 5 minutes to fix.
Okay, so that's fine. So we did that, but then where's the part where we maintain that? Is that somewhere too? Where did the maintenance? Did you create a layout for that?
That's the next integration. So this is the virtual list one. This is the one where if you want to make it work, you got to create your own string that basically populates these menus. So like if I wanted to change the word print right there or do action to something else,
right?
Again, this is where your skill level has to be quite a bit higher. Then you need to.
I like the
one
with the little. Oh, got it. Where's the one with the like happy menu that Dr. Pollard liked?
We're gonna do that one next. So this one, a lot less stuff breaks, and I'm not really showing you all the custom functions. I'm kind of breezing past that. But similar to the last integration, we're gonna go over here. We're gonna go into layout mode. We're gonna move this out of the way, okay? And we're gonna add a. It's gonna ask me to save the layout before you add a add-on. And there's system menus. Now notice this one takes a moment. Okay, hit shows. We're rainbow wheeling. I don't know if you can see that. It takes a moment. Like it's not instantaneous. And at first you might go, well, that kind of sucks. But when it's done here, let's look at what that moment did. Again, we go to the custom functions and I go to creation order. I've got from here down, it added a bunch of custom functions for us. If I go to the I'm not going to go to the value list because the starting point, it's got 1 million, but it brought them over. We've got layouts. In fact, I didn't show you that in the other integration, but it brings over the entire file. I mean, that rainbow wheel brought all of this over. And then if we go to the script workspace at the very bottom here, we've got our scripts.
All right, so
go ahead, Richard.
So Linux is, if you want to look over there on Twitch, he's got a question there. So it's, I think
yes. The answer is yes.
What he said is no, but well, kind of yes, right? I mean, it's because the way Claris does this is kind of goofy. Because but the answer is yes. Yeah, you add it to your own add-on modules that are installed on your specific client, and then from there you can drag them into the solution, right?
So part of the reason, and Richard and I started the chat about this at the beginning of the meeting, we're gonna have to chat afterwards, is how do we distribute this? We're gonna give you guys the sample file because we're nice. We'll see if anyone else gets it. But what we want to do here actually is make it so that you all can go into layout mode and add the add-on and drag it on screen. And we've never distributed anything like that before. And it's distributable, but we have to teach people how to do it because it's brand new. And Linux, to answer your question, yes, what we want to do is give you the file so that when you click this little plus right here, it shows up in all the different files.
Wait, I got to move my thing over there. That plus right there, it adds it into here. Yeah. And then do you still, so it adds it in here, but that adds it to the file, right? At this point, right? It adds it into the file, right?
In fact, so I showed everyone that we've got a script. In fact, one thing I didn't do the script here is I'm going to turn the base elements thing on. I thought about making this a field. It's in the script. You have to go to configure and turn a 1 on if you want it. And then if we go to the tables, well, let's just go to the relationship graph. It added the module here. So in that time we were watching the rainbow wheel spin, this whole thing got integrated. But if you notice, and again, this is just our vertical version of starting point, it's not doing anything. It's self-isolated at the moment.
It didn't auto-connect? Is that because you suck? Or is that why did that not auto-connect?
Because we haven't done it yet. So if you remember from the previous conversation,
yes.
This brings... So think about this. When you push this button, Amazon sends you a package. And now sitting in my living room is my new toy. But I need to add my new toy to my house. So we're going to drag it over here.
Yeah. Okay, stop. So this is like a partial install, right? I mean, Amazon brought it to you, but if you never finish it, this crap is still mostly stuffed into your file. Now you're dragging it around with you like a dead dog, right? So this is like half the install. This is the other half the install, right? And you kind of have to do both. And so let me guess. So that's connected the relationship, right? Now that we finished.
As soon as and I didn't show you this all with the virtual menu ones because I didn't want to beat a dead horse, what have you. But now I'm going to put this into place.
You know, I've learned about 4 things today, and yeah, this is really good. I should just like.
Oh, and I'll well, if we have time, I'll show you even a couple. There is a bunch of little treats in here, if you will. We didn't really talk about how that virtual list is building a list of them, the non-repeating icons. Let's go to browse mode here. And yes, to go back to what Richard just said, now if we go to the relationship graph, boom, and I'm going to turn that into a Cartesian, though for some reason it's working without it being one. And there it is now. Before I go show this working in accounts, let's do something real quickly. I'm just going to take this module and slide it down right here. There's a reason that I reorganized the graph.
Yeah, so you can cross-connect it everywhere.
Yep, so we're going to go over here now to contacts.
Yeah, but isn't that going to be, then we'll have like this like spider dog solution then?
Very good conversation piece. I don't want spider dogs either. So we can go to the relationship graph here in just a moment. Let me grab this and talk about it.
Because we're supposed to be doing like enterprise, right? And if you do spider, then you've automatically suicided yourself.
Spider web is garbage. There's no reason to ever do a spider web. Let's go ahead and turn that one into a Cartesian and hit change. Okay, and so let's minus out on here because this is a little bit different.
All right,
and this is where
this is no longer anchor buoy. This is anchor poo poo. This is very bad.
I would argue to differ on that a bit. Now, we're not talking about selector connector today, but those of you who are familiar with it may have seen things that look like this. So we're not getting rid of anchor buoy, but we are creating a way because of drawing this on the relationship graph, where if this was on the right-hand side, it would look a bit funky. But it ultimately is still a buoy. And if you wanted to, and if you,
I'm pretty sure that when you go to a layout here, hang on, where are you going? Go back to left.
Okay, 1 second.
Is that
and I can expand that.
Okay, well when you
go ahead.
Okay. So we're on this layout here, and in order for FileMaker to render this layout, it has to understand, download all the relevant bits of data here, including some of the data, right? But now that you've added this, it's going to have to load this stuff, and then it's also going to go up here and load all that stuff too. And so you've done a double your pleasure with double mint gum. It's an old commercial, but you've screwed yourself, right, on the enterprise thing. So I have, unless you can forcibly make sure, well, see, it's going to evaluate the relationship, right? And so
it will. This gets into that selector connector conversation.
I'm having anger management problems.
That being said, if you wanted to, Richard, you don't have to integrate it this way, but it would be more work. And that is to say interface here doesn't have to exist whatsoever. What you could do is take the keys in interface. So if we go to interface, it's a very, very little table. Take these keys. You could copy them. Well, not ID constant. You could copy those 3 keys into accounts, into contacts, and then you could redraw the relationships directly to these. So, but then you would need to come over here. You would need to take these buoys, duplicate them, drag them up here, and draw 3 keys. I thought about doing that. And by all means, you can do that. But what I like about this personally, and this is where Richard and I probably wouldn't see eye to eye, is the ease of integration. It's super easy for me to integrate in all these things.
All right, but you're not very enterprisey. And then you take this to like 500 people across the globe and stuff. And then suddenly you start beach balling and stuff, and they'll be like, what happened? Oh, well, we had this guy who worked for us named Kristian, but we fired his ass for writing slow databases, right? So,
thus far, none of my my selector connector databases are slow, but this is a debatable area. So again, you could get rid of interface and just have them directly go to here.
I would.
The positive there that Richard is saying is that it would be more performance oriented. The negative there is the integration time would be just a little bit steeper.
Okay.
Because you would have to sit and add that.
Yeah.
Down here, you'll notice this is all anchor buoy.
Yeah, you could say it's not a thing, but the reality is, because what you're doing is you're pitching the fact that you're going to connect it to basically everything for whatever reason, and then everything's connected, and then literally the performance goes down by half. This is not me saying this. This is Hans at 24U.
Hans didn't say going by half. He didn't say half. He said that the selector connector model was marginally worse than anchor buoy.
No, it's not. I got the charts. Okay. I'll show it to you. Right? It's the timeline for it. I went through this in the last 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? Because we revisited this. He actually had a spider graph and he reorganized it and did time testing on it. I'll bring it out for you, but trust me on this, I'm not wrong about this one. So,
and what Richard is saying here is that because these are both connected with Cartesians, when you go to contacts or you go to accounts, you're having to load exponentially more data structure, which if you're over a wide area network is going to performance. So yes, this could be integrated in 100% anchor buoy. You'd still have to start from where I am. you can't have the add-on tool just added in those
No,
ways.
no.
So,
I understand. I'm not saying
yeah.
that. Listen. The difference is here is like I have to be the. Let me transition here just a little bit. I have to be the guardian of starting point, right? It sounds like a patch. We need guardians of starting point, right? And that's to keep engineers who don't deploy enterprise level solutions from screwing up basically an enterprise grade tool. And so the selector connector speed is almost identical with what you're thinking of. There were 3 tests that were done. There was a spider graph, a selector connector, and an anchor buoy. And the anchor buoy, or the spider graph and the selector connector performance was within fractional amount difference of each other. But they were both about twice as long because the performance was down about half. And that was with what Hansa said. If it was just me saying it, then you say, well, Richard's a moron. But I already kind of suspected the case on this. And it's funny to the point that what Claris has formally came out, we don't have a video on this, it's on my to-do list. They wrote their own blog about performance on June 5th. And they basically said, we highly recommend you reorganize the chart to put things into smaller sections. They refuse to use the words anchor buoy either because they don't know that term or whatever, but Claris went back to actually endorsing anchor buoy for performance issues specifically on cloud, wide area network-based performance. And so, once again, the idea is that they actually drew a picture of anchor buoy and said, yeah, this is what you need to build. And it was kind of funny because they didn't really clarify it all. And then drag and drop, Kristian, I want to say hats off on this because we are running out of time.
So I got one last thing I can kind of show here, and then we can end, we can talk, whatever it might be. So that's how you integrate it. I wanted to show that. But Linux, and maybe he missed the first part, is asking about, the creating of the list. So the file that I'm bringing up here is almost identical what I just showed everyone there. I just have a couple functional things in here. So once it's added, you go to your menu builder, and then you can create menus. Again, Richard, you mentioned user. I didn't even think about that. I thought of them more as layout or module specific. But if we go to accounts, one of the things that I could get rid of up here is duplicate, print, labels, report, what have you. So how do we add those into the system? Well, if I click on my little eye right here, and this does take a second in starting point, because what it's doing right now is it's using a recursive or while function to draw in a virtual list every single script on the database.
Okay.
Go ahead.
There's a couple. That's why they're all numbered.
And then I can select the scripts that I want accessible. So print, and then down here I made a new script called duplicate. Somewhere way down there. There it is. So now those are available in my dropdown over here. That's how I got duplicate. And if we go to print, that's how I got print. Okay. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to move that off just in case we do need it again. And now we come over here, and you'd have a script trigger on layout enter to select the correct key for accounts. And then look at what you have right here. And it works. So I just duplicated that record. I can print. It just called that script.
If anyone walks away with just one lesson learned, it's the add-on modules is really a game changer, because here you can see it, and it's still kind of malfunctioning and doing stupid stuff, and it also tends to promote bad relational non-performance diagramming. But this is really big because all that stuff theoretically you wouldn't have to know, as long as Kristian and I'm using Kristian loosely, as an intelligent individual who keeps the integration elements simple. You drag it on in layout mode, then you drag it again, then you go to a couple sections and update them. Then everything else, people don't have to know how it worked because, it just works, right? This is up there with like Nick grade stuff, although for me, it's a little harder to follow, and there's a lot. He's trying to pack about 10 pounds of crap into a 5-pound bag, which makes it kind of challenging.
Well, and I haven't really been to show people how it works. It's the very glossed over.
I understand, but that's also the benefit of the add-on module, right? So even though add-ons right now are in their infancy and they suck. Okay, period, end of story. Right? If I have to come to you and say, hey, we're going to use this technology, it really should work, but it doesn't really work because I start coming up with my excuse list. That's not good technology. But that's beta. And that's what FileMaker has us actively playing with beta software to give them feedback. And so the bugs that Kristian's run into here, bugs have already been reported. There is a new build of 19 that they're starting to test, and we will test to see if this is still an issue there. But we need to do a video, Kristian, basically a demo video on this, a short video, and then a video on how to do the add-on module drag and drop, because I think by far that's the best way to go, right? So
oh, absolutely. I mean, and so people can understand why I did this. Sharing it with everybody is very exciting, and I appreciate the compliments, and I'm really pleased to see that people think this is cool. But I like to, Richard knows that one of my biggest motivations in life, and I'm not coy about this, I like getting paid. And the menu thing outside of what I have today, when I first showed that to a client, he gave me very positive feedback, and I showed it to other clients, and they said, we want that. So then when I realized that I wanted to be able to do this submenu thing, of course, that's going to work right there, that I wanted to do this submenu option, I'll fix that in a second. I realized that I would want to do this more than one time. Yes. So how do I add this to all of the clients that I'm going to have over time in rapid development? Well, I invest an incredible amount of my time to put this into a library that I can quickly integrate. I don't have much interest in selling the menu, the virtual menus on some add-on marketplace, whereas Richard was asking before this, what are you going to do with all the people that ask questions about this? I'm going to tell them they can hire me because I'm not selling it. It's free. Really what this is there for is for the clients that that do hire me, and I show them and they go, that's cool, I can easily add it to my clients. This add-on is a repository for me so that I can add things into as many files as I can quickly. And I'm happy to share that with our community so that maybe some others can use this. And you know what? This has been a process of me stealing something from Nick, being inspired by Nick. And then what I first made was actually kind of a turd. And then I went to another engineer at RCC and I was like, hey, what do you think about this? Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just yours. It was that you stole it from Nick, and at first you polished a turd. Keep going.
And it was rather ugly, and I knew that it was kind of ugly, so I called up another engineer, and I basically needed him to confirm for me that what I was looking at was ugly. And we chatted, and he came up with a couple suggestions, and we went back and forth, and then the competition between, if you will, Nick and I kind of took off. So if you want to, in the last couple minutes, so I've showed you guys all everything here. For our Discord group, I've got a riddle for all of you, though. How do you make a portal that shows non-repeating container fields? Ponder that one. This thing is hard to figure out how to do because there's many different records that have a printer icon, and it's a container field. So how do you do that? That's my riddle for Discord. But Richard, do you want me to show an actual customer's file that has a this version of it?
Yeah, I'm just watching. So we're at 2:48 Pacific time right now. 3 o'clock, the broadcast, at least to the Twitch and YouTube, will terminate you with extreme prejudice. That was that Full Metal Jacket, right?
Yeah, and so we won't even necessarily dive too deep in here. In fact, I'm probably going to have to come in and do some updates to this because this is even a version older than I just showed everyone today. But here's a great example of a situation where I actually kind of needed this. It started off with a menu, and I built this for my clients. Of course, it's going to do this with the weird resolution. There we go. So my clients needed, like the idea of a menu, because we had all these different things they had to do. They needed to print. They needed to do reoccurring complicated finds, like something called returning students, owing students, something called an alpha list of financial aid. But my client also accesses what I like to call the classic layouts. These are the layouts they used before they hired me. And we're trying to deprecate them, but she wanted an easy way to access them from here and then be able to get back to here. Additionally, I did a Docusign integration for this client, and we needed to be able to do several finds based on the Docusign integration. Need to send, sent, delivered, completed, so on and so forth. I could have just continued to make the list that we're looking at really tall, but I think people could see why that would not be ideal. Once I showed them this, they're like, that's cool. Let's have the disability one do it. Or better yet, let's have classic layouts go into there. This list classic layouts one was actually even longer until this weekend when my client finally agreed to delete a bunch of the layouts that she built many, many, many years ago. But then in those classic layouts, we need to be able to find financial layouts. So this was, to me, a great use of why we would actually have submenus, because one of the seniors brought this up when I first showed this off. They're like, that's cool, but why would you ever need a submenu? That's never come up. And so this was the first client that it came up with. Now that I have the tool to easily add this to files, I'll tell you what, I'll probably think of reasons or suggest it to my clients in the future, especially if they have a layout with a lot of actions taking place. And to go back to what someone else had asked at the beginning, Richard, would I get rid of all the buttons on screen if I had a menu? Absolutely not. This client has lots of buttons going on here, from filters on the portal over here to changing the slide panel you're looking at. There's still many reasons to have other buttons on screen. This is just another tool in the toolbox, if you will. And this right here is actually what Nick's original thing is that I stole it from. So that's, I just wanted to show an integration.
You were inspired. Thank you. You didn't. There was no theft.
I was inspired.
There was no theft involved whatsoever. Yes. We are running out of time, so I want to thank everyone once again. Reminder: welcome to FMTrain.tv, the place where we've been babbling endlessly for 2 hours. Hopefully, you've learned a lot. Tell people about it. Tell other FileMaker people about it. Let them know we're here. Remind them to buy our training bundles, with the exception of TK and and I think Andre, who are probably going to end up earning a bundle, completely free renewal bundle when that comes up. They're going to earn that. But yeah, definitely let people know that they can get the training here. We really appreciate the support. And let them know that we're here every day at 1 o'clock. All right, cool. Mind is blown officially. Thanks, everyone. Kristian, anything else? Is that it?
No, thanks, everybody, for the kind comments. Glad to get to share it with the community.
And then we will give this everyone a week from today will be the plan. All right? Cool. Thank you.
Guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snags a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.